Today on Locked On MLB, we're going to the National League Championship Series. Maybe the Dodgers are going to clinch the pennant. Maybe the Mets are going to extend this another day. Let's find out.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. So here's the deal. I'm at the National League Championship Series right now, and I'm about to go in with tickets I got through Game Time. How about that for synergy? And we're about to see if the Los Angeles Dodgers can clinch the National League pennant tonight, or if this series is going to go on for one more game. Here's the deal. You all know the answer. Your pal Sully doesn't. Earlier this year, I went to a game here, and I did a whole episode right here from Dodger Stadium, where I basically said, this is a World Series or bust team. A couple of you took exception to that, but I wasn't wrong. This is a team that was built to win it all. This is a team that when you add a Shohei Ohtani to this mix, you are going to see whether or not this team is going to be the championship caliber team that everyone expected it to be, or whether or not this will be a letdown. Now, we do know one thing. We do know that the World Series is going to involve the New York Yankees. We also know that games 3, 4, and 5 are going to take place in New York. If the Mets win the pennant, games 3, 4, and 5 will be at Citi Field. If the Los Angeles Dodgers win the pennant, games 3, 4, and 5 will be at Yankee Stadium. Now, we're about to witness a bullpen game. You know how it turns out. I don't. I'm standing in the area where they have these giant baseballs. I had to phrase it like that. These giant baseballs honoring the Cy Young Award winners of the Dodgers past. It's funny that I'm standing next to the Mike Marshall ball for his Cy Young Award when he was a relief ace. 2 relievers have won the Cy Young Award for the LA Dodgers. Mike Marshall is one, Eric Gagne is the other one. The rest of them, like Fernando Valenzuela's, which is right there that I'm pointing to, were for workhorse pitchers. Right now, the way baseball has been designed, the way baseball has evolved, we seem to be putting a greater premium on a relief ace like Mike Marshall than we ever would with a workhorse like Fernando Valenzuela or Oral Hershiser or Sandy Koufax or Don Drysdale. Did I miss one? I probably did. Oddly not Don Sutton. Don Sutton never won a Cy Young Award, Hall of Famer. We're going to see if the bullpen game works. And I am not criticizing it for the short term, because this is the hand that the Dodgers have been dealt. Obviously, they would love to have Clayton Kershaw starting today. Obviously, they would love to have Tyler Glasnow starting today. Obviously, they would love to hand the ball to a pitcher and say, okay, give us 7 or 8. And in a future podcast, I am going to address my thoughts on this and what needs to be done. But in the short term, here's the deal. The Dodgers have been pulling this off. The Dodgers have been playing the slalom of relievers and doing a fine job of it, thank you very much. And oddly, we saw by having Honeywell, is that his name? I almost called him Honeycomb. Having Honeywell eat up 4 2/3 innings, this bullpen is completely rested. This bullpen is ready to go. Brazier could throw 2 innings. Trinan could throw 2 innings. Kopech could throw 2 innings. I would love to see a reliever, I don't know, heaven forbid, throw 2 or 3 innings. But we're going to see. And if that happens, then Dave Roberts will have finally answered a whole pile of his critics who have questioned how he handles his staff. By the way, I'm going back to the show that I did here just a few weeks ago. I think it was the last weekend of September. It was a game where Ohtani and Mookie Betts wound up hitting back-to-back home runs to win the game against the Colorado Rockies. I said back then that Dave Roberts' reputation and the entire hope for the Dodgers of winning the World Series is going to be based upon how he handles the pitching staff, how he handles the relievers. And if you take a look at how he's done it, it's tough to argue when you consider what this team was when they were down 2-1 to the San Diego Padres and faced elimination. How they came back with all those shutout innings, yeah, that's worth admiring. But here's the deal, and I'm going to address this to the fan who said, I thought this was an MLB show, not a Dodgers show. There is another team playing here. That's the New York Mets. And the Mets, with the Quintanas of the world, with some of their pitchers who could go a little deeper, guess what? They're rested too. And all the Mets have to do is derail it. We've seen that the Mets can get that big hit. We've seen this entire magical couple of weeks that the Mets have had, going back to the Pete Alonso home run, going back to the Francisco Lindor home run against Atlanta. Doesn't that seem like a long time ago? We've seen that they can get the big hit. And when you're going on a bullpen game, you just need to derail one or two of them. It is a fragile house of cards, which is why baseball needs to find a way to get back to an innings-eating pitcher, which doesn't rely on having 5 or 6 people all doing their job perfectly. The Mets just need to topple one of those dominoes. They just need to tip one. And the thing about this Mets team is they have been facing all sorts of turmoil for the last few weeks. They faced elimination facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They faced elimination in those games against the Atlanta Braves. They stared elimination in the face in the game against the Milwaukee Brewers, which turned into the Pete Alonso game. They had to face a super talented Philadelphia Phillies team that I thought, when I bought these tickets, that the Dodgers were going to be playing the Phillies. And then they faced all those challenges. Then they faced a challenge being down 3-1, and they came out swinging. And they got the big hit against Flaherty, against the starting pitcher who gave the Dodgers length. The Dodgers didn't want to come back here to play this game. They wanted to win Game 5 and give everybody big-time rest. All the Mets have to do is tap one of the dominoes, and the rest will fall. All they need to do is get one big inning early, and we'll put the Dodgers on their heels. That's what makes the first couple innings of this game so fascinating. Now, if everyone does their job for the Dodgers like they did against San Diego, this series is going to be over today. But that's asking a lot. It was asking a lot then, it's asking a lot tonight. And the Mets know this. The Mets know that if they tip one over, then they're going to face Yamamoto in Game 7. And Yamamoto can pitch like an ace, and he can get bombed. And you have to go back all the way to last year to see an unlikely team win the final 2 games of a series at home and go to the World Series, like Arizona did. People have been underestimating the Mets all year long. Do you know who's really underestimated the Mets? Me. I've underestimated them big time. I've underestimated them to a fault. I said they should have sold at the trade deadline. I have not egg on my face, I have an all-you-can-eat omelet buffet on my face regarding the New York Metropolitans. And they are 2 wins away from a Subway Series. And a lot of people have lost a lot of money betting against the Mets. So we're going to see. You know what's going to happen. I will find out. This episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, which must mean I must be getting great deals right now because the first pitch is about to take place. You get killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. I use Game Time for guess what? Guess what I used it for? Give it your best shot. That's right. I bought tickets for the game I'm about to go into. Game 6 of the 2024 NLCS. Got terrific tickets through Game Time. Got a view of the seat, and I got a fantastic deal well ahead of time. But if you want to wait till the last minute, you can use it too. Great deals all the time. Get the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you got ticket coverage. It's covered with the most flexible ticket service policy in the industry. And I get the panoramic view from my seat, so I know exactly where I'm going. You got to take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. They're guaranteed. All right, right now it is the 8th inning, and it's 7-4 Dodgers. The Dodgers have plowed through a lot of pitchers at this point. And you know what's going to happen. I don't. But if the Mets go on a rally against one of the pitchers, the Dodgers have already burnt through a bunch. But I have to say, so far, even though it's not been the great shutout performance that the Dodgers had against San Diego last week, you got to give Dave Roberts credit. This is a hand he was dealt, and he didn't get a great performance by Kopech. He didn't get a great performance by Brazier. But he's sitting there right now as I'm recording this, 3 outs from the pennant. So, are we on the verge of giving Roberts lots and lots of credit for the people who are big haters of them? I don't know. I'm going to go back to my seat and go check it out. You should too. All right, you can probably tell what just happened. Place is going nuts. All right, there you have it. The Dodgers won the pennant, and we have a matchup. We know it's going to be the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. For the first time since Reggie Jackson was on the New York Yankees. For the first time since the first year of Fernando Mania, the Yankees are going to be playing the Dodgers. We're going to have New York, we're going to have LA. We're going to have big superstars on both sides. We're going to have two teams that are playing very well. Two flawed teams that have vulnerabilities, but the stars who can hit their way out of it. And we're going to see what should be a dynamite, star-studded matchup. Before we say goodbye to them, you have to give credit to the Mets. The Mets played great baseball against really tough competition. Atlanta, Milwaukee, and of course Philadelphia. Philadelphia looked like the team that was built for an October run, and the Mets punched them right in the mouth. The Dodgers were better. Kind of like how the Yankees were just better than the Guardians. The Dodgers were just better than the Mets. And the Mets have a lot to build upon. Big time to build upon for next year. There's some good pitching, and they're building some things up there. But right now, this was a year for the Dodgers. This was win the World Series or bust. Well, they got to the World Series. And now we're going to see what's going to happen here. But either way, the Mets fans should be thrilled. And I got to say, where I was sitting there was a Met fan behind me who was chanting "Dodgers suck" and everything like that. I thought, dude, wrong day to say that. But I looked over, and he was a dude from Corona, Queens, wearing his Mets jersey, wearing a Piazza jersey, and he was cheering right to the end. And he never stopped believing. He pulled a journey, never stopped believing, right to the very end. And do you know what? That's exactly what fandom should be. Right to the very end. Now they're playing Celebration by Kool and the Gang. And as the one-time host of Locked On A's, I think that's appropriation. This is what the A's play when they win. But either way, you can see right now behind me, the Dodgers have, they're doing the whole thing where they set up the thing. They're going to announce the MVP. The Dodgers are celebrating a well-earned National League championship, trying to win their first World Series in 2020 and their first normal World Series in a while. It's funny, the '88 World Series championship was weird because it was filled with a lot of players that weren't lifetime Dodgers, and they were clearly the worst team, but they won with the heroics of Kirk Gibson and Oral Hershiser. And then the '81 World Series was weird because that was the strike year. They didn't have the best record. Basically, they had the best record in the National League West. But they got in because of how the weird playoffs were set up that year. And so it's kind of like since 1965 was the last time they had a kind of a normal World Series. But we'll see. They've earned this. They earned this big time. And by the way, I just want to go on the record. I think it's nonsense that there are people who don't think the 2020 World Series was legitimate. It was legitimate. It was the World Series that was played, and they had to go through 4 rounds. Well, as it goes on right now, the Dodgers are celebrating. The crowd here went crazy, and I was surrounded by really terrific Dodger fans. Met fans, it was a magical October. They came up a couple of games short. They had the bases loaded at one point, the Mets did, and they couldn't get the big hit. I don't know what Senga was doing on the mound at the end, but it basically put the game away. And Trinan got the final outs. Am I a fan of using a new pitcher every inning? No. But it worked. And it's binary. Did they win? Did they lose? They won. They won with a bullpen game against San Diego. They won with a bullpen game here against the Mets. They are 4 wins away from the World Series, or World Series victory. So are the Yankees. And both teams mix and match their bullpens like crazy. So for at least 4 and as many as 7 games, this is how it's going to be. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you make your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com. It's America's #1 sportsbook. All right. So we've saluted the Mets. We've shown our respect to Cleveland. We got New York versus Los Angeles. Now, I've said before, I don't care about TV ratings. I don't. There's no microscope powerful enough to detect how little I care about TV ratings. But in terms of the history, this is a great old-fashioned matchup. Yankees-Dodgers. Going back to 1941, the Mickey Owens pass ball, the Al Gianfrido catch, Billy Martin single up the middle in 1953. The Dodgers finally win it with the Padres. Johnny Padres shutout. You got the Don Larson no-hitter. You have Sandy Koufax dominating the Yankees in 1963. The World Series, by the way, if you see the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that's the World Series that R.P. McMurphy wanted to watch. You got to see Reggie Jackson's 3 home runs. You got to see Bob Welch strike out Reggie Jackson, only have Reggie Jackson homer off of Welch. You got to see Fernando Mania and Ron Say and Pedro Guerrero and Steve Yeager. And it seemed like for a while, Dodgers-Yankees was going to be a generational event. But the Dodgers won some pennants and World Series in the 80s, and then the Yankees won pennants and World Series in the 90s and 2000s, but the Dodgers didn't win piddly-poo in the 90s and 2000s in terms of pennants. They got to the NLCS a couple times. And then in the 2010s, when the Dodgers started showing up, the Yankees stopped winning pennants. So there were whole swaths of stars for the Yankees who never faced off against Los Angeles in the World Series. There was no Derek Jeter coming to Chavez Ravine. There was no A-Rod. There was no Bernie Williams or Andy Pettitte or Tino Martinez or Mariano Rivera. And when Piazza should have been the great star of Dodgers history and Pedro Martinez should have been the great star of Dodgers history, they were both unceremoniously sent off to face the Yankees in postseason under different uniforms. Then, when the Dodgers became regulars in the World Series, there was no Clayton Kershaw facing off against the Yankees, and there won't be this year because of injury. And you won't see the Corey Seagers, who I thought had a body and a swing and a playing style that was designed for Yankee Stadium. This is why I thought the Yankees were going to sign him when he became a free agent. Nope. Those matchups never took place. So now we got a new generation of heroes on both sides. And look, I can say this as someone who loves baseball history, not necessarily as a native New Englander who's finding some peace and calm in his life, that I'm not as upset when I see the Yankees have success. But this is probably good for baseball to see the superstars face off. Look, I think that anytime you win, okay? And if you are a team that had a great regular season but got ousted in the postseason, that's on you. When we saw last year the Rangers and the Diamondbacks in the World Series, two teams that were the road teams in the wild card series, that means they both ousted a bunch of heavily favored teams, including the Dodgers. And you have to give a team credit when they do that. But every once in a while, it's good to have the two teams with the best records square off. And that's what we're going to have tonight. If every year there's a big upset, then it's not as fun. Just like if every year was the top two teams, that's not quite as fun. You may not like the Yankees, but as I said before, every once in a while, it's good to have the Empire strike back. You may hate the Dodgers, but one thing that fuels hate is seeing them have success. People love to root against teams. There's healthy hatred in sports. And seeing these two teams square off, there's someone for all fan bases to hate in terms of a team in this World Series. And if you don't think hate watching is a real thing, you should talk to my sons who watch stuff on YouTube that they know they're going to dislike. Rooting for your team is great. Rooting against the team is critical. And if you've seen the rise and fall of the popularity of baseball, by a weird coincidence, a lot of the peaks seem to coincide when the Yankees are good. In other words, people hating them. But it gets harder to hate when a whole generation of Yankee teams don't make the World Series, and a whole generation of Yankee fans go, what's this winning the World Series or bust stuff? I've never seen them win a pennant in my life. It's funny, at the beginning of the year, I saw someone write on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, I'm so tired of seeing the Yankees and Dodgers winning the World Series every year. And I replied back, then you must be in heaven, because in the last 20 years, they've combined for 2 World Series titles. Well, now they're going to combine for 3. And I'm sure that guy who typed that, I don't remember who it was, it's not worth a retweet, is probably saying, see, it's Yankees Dodgers again, blah, 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 blah. An interesting thing is since 2010, of the 30 Major League Baseball teams, 18 of them have won a pennant since 2010. So if anyone ever says it's the same teams in the World Series every year, that's factually untrue. But it's good to have, every once in a while, to have the two best teams face off. Upsets are great, but they shouldn't happen all the time. And also, the fact of the matter is, it's good to have a team filled with stars win from time to time to give those stars their big shining moment. Either way, we are in for a dramatic World Series. Two fan bases. You may not like Yankee fans or you may not like Dodger fans, but a lot of them are going to show up. It's going to be star-studded. It's going to be glamorous. And if you like pitching changes, boy, oh boy, do I have a series for you. But the Dodgers earned this tonight, just like the Yankees earned it the other night. The Yankees were better than Cleveland. The Dodgers were better than the Mets. Would this have been a different series if the Tigers had advanced? No, I think the Yankees would have clobbered them. Would this have been a different series if Philadelphia had advanced? Maybe, because I still think Philadelphia was the best designed team for an October run. But they lost, and the Mets deserved a spot in the NLCS. And the Dodgers deserve a spot in the World Series, which is going to start in a few days. And I'm going to be doing a couple of evergreen podcasts this week. And you may note that the podcast I'm going to do on Wednesday morning is going to be completely evergreen because I have another dentist appointment and I'm going to be filled with Novocaine. But maybe it's best that there's going to be a couple of days off so I can get my teeth fixed. But you can get your teeth fixed or you can get your fix of baseball. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Going to Game 6 of the National League Championship Series and reporting back to you. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. World Series is going to start. Yankees, Dodgers, and you can call me Sully.